Reagan Robertson here with Productive Dentist Academy. Get ready to join your favorite podcast hosts, Dr. Bruce B. Baird, Victoria Peterson, Dr. Chad Johnson, and myself, Reagan Robertson, at the nation's #1 dental business course that guarantees practice growth. That's right, full immersion CE, so you can consistently produce more and align your team for results without compromising excellent patient care. Productive Dentist Academy has a special running this month that you can activate immediately. It's called the Pda Productivity Bundle. And we put this together so that you could attend this workshop, which is happening September 22nd to the 24th in Frisco, Texas at the Hyatt Regency, along with tools to make sure that not only are you getting great education on how to increase your productivity, how to communicate better with your team and your patients, increase your case acceptance, authentic market practice, and more, you also get a 2-hour business advisory session before the workshop to really get clear on what matters to you most so that you can be set up for success at the workshop. And following the workshop, you get 12 months access to PDA on demand. That is the entire productivity workshop on demand for you to make sure that you are doing everything you can in your power to soak up all of that CE and implement it come Monday morning, the next month, and the next month, and the next month for 12 months down the line. Registration is now open. The tuition cost is $2,195, which is ridiculous because it's regularly $5,528 for the productivity workshop attendance, 2-hour business advisory session, and 12 months access to PDA on demand. Hop on over right now to www.productivedentist.com/workshop to grab your registration today. Again, that is www.productivedentist.com/workshop. If you cannot wait and you have to have it right now, email Brent, B-R-E-N-T, at productivedentist.com. That's Brent, B-R-E-N-T, at productivedentist.com, and we will save you a seat. I look forward to seeing you there.
Welcome to Investment Grade Practices Podcast, where we believe private practice dentists deserve to get the lifestyle today while building an asset for tomorrow. Join your host, Victoria Peterson, to design the practice of your dreams and secure your financial independence. Let's get started.
Accounting doesn't matter until it matters, says my next guest, Chris Sands from ProFi 2020, American and North American, I think you're beyond US, North American CPA firm. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Victoria. So glad to be here. It's an honor, and looking forward to some exciting discussions if we can make tax and accounting exciting today.
Well, we'll get to this in a minute, but given that you and I are both UGA grads from the University of Georgia, go Dogs, this will be fun. So we got to do the whole thing though. Go Dogs.
Sing 'em.
I love it.
Football, college football national champions. We have to soak it in once every 40 years.
And, we'll just dive into this right now. So I was there when Herschel Walker was the Heisman Trophy winner and REM was just getting started as a band and, all that kind of cool, groovy time back in the early 80s. You graduated UGA in
2008.
So there's a 20-year difference in our experiences there. So at the end of the show, we'll tell you the true difference and what it meant to be on campus in 1980s versus the 2000s. But Chris, I want to dive into accounting doesn't matter until it matters. So when does accounting matter?
Accounting doesn't matter until there's a significant exchange of money. And that's when it matters. And, that can happen annually. It could be that you got a tax surprise, you grew, you made more money, you had a big tax bill, and all of a sudden the accounting mattered. It was ignored and maybe too late, and then you had that pain point. The other times are when you're typically buying or selling something. And the biggest one for any doctor in their career is when they're selling their practice. So a lot of times accounting gets downplayed and ignored for someone's entire career. And then they get to that point of sale and they're either pleasantly surprised or very disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it really, really matters. And, you know, there's the times too, if you're asking for money, you know, if you're asking lenders for money, whenever there's a significant exchange of money is when it matters.
It's almost like your credit score doesn't matter till it matters, right? It sits
That's correct.
quietly in the background, and then you get a mortgage and you don't qualify, or that car loan, they charge you 2% more because you can't qualify because of credit score.
That's right. That's right.
I love that. And I've worked with so many clients who have formed partnerships, or they're buying or they're selling, and they go, okay, I'm putting my practice on the market. And that's kind of the old school way of thinking of things, is like listing a house. I'm now putting it on the market, and within 6 to 12 months, I'm wiping my hands of this. I promised myself, when I was, one of the practices I bought in Wisconsin, he said, I promised myself when I turned 62, I would no longer own the business. So he started when he was like 61 to look for a buyer. And he got so angry and upset. There were things we needed from him that were holding up the loan that they just hadn't gotten back. And the date of the closing date was going to fall the day after his birthday. And because he had promised himself 62, I thought he was going to have a coronary. So we talked to him, and we talked to the banks, and we talked to the closing agent and said, let's close today and let's fund tomorrow. So he got to learn that funding date could be different than closing date. And then I swear he called me every 10 minutes to see if the wire transfer had gone through. I was like, those take time. So you get really funny about money. People get really funny about money. Now, you're not actually a CPA, but you own one of what I think is one of the most progressive CPA firms in the nation. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you love this space.
Yeah, I never thought I would be in accounting. They were not my favorite classes in undergraduate school. I also never thought I would be in the line of business line of dentistry. I'm not a dentist. I'm not a CPA, and I've worked in both of those business models. And if you're on this podcast and you're somebody who knows the business of dentistry, I will tell you that the business of accounting is very similar in terms of the makeup. The dentist is just like the CPA. Every dentist has dental assistants. CPAs have tax assistants. And the hygiene department, that's like our bookkeeping and accounting department.
Mm-hmm.
I look for similarities. I happened to stumble my way into dentistry, and then saw this problem in accounting to create this firm. And then I learned that they're the same exact business model. But my story is that I came out of school with a desire to work with people. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I had a degree in risk management, and that kind of made me analyze businesses. That was part of the workload that we had in undergrad. And got introduced to a dentist early on, and asked him it was the first practice he was buying. Asked him if I could come sit in his dental office one day a month and observe and learn, kind of on the side as I was doing a full-time job. And it turned into a 3-year relationship where we grew, 600,000 collections to 1.7 million in 4 chairs with one doctor. And then I could tell we were out of space. And he's since grown the enterprise to 3 locations. But during those 3 years, I did everything but the clinical dentistry, and I didn't deal too much with any of the insurance companies. But during that time, I primarily focused on the financials, and I had the relationships with the CPAs, and we had 3 different CPAs in those 3 years because I fired them every year. 2 out of the 3 were dental CPAs, and I learned fairly quickly that they knew accounting and did accounting for a lot of dental practices, but they didn't know the business of dentistry. And, at the time, I thought I wanted to maybe do what you do, Victoria. I thought I wanted to be a practice management coach or consultant, and just saw that I just had this huge pain point dealing with the CPAs because I could not get the data on time. I could not get our financial reports every single month. And then I couldn't get any of that business advice. So I learned enough of the, business of dental practice management to be dangerous. And I finally found a CPA one day that spoke my language, shared with him the void that was in the space. And I said, we have to create something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And we wanted to create a firm that, would deliver financials every single month, guaranteed, and that would be proactive in its advice, and that would have, a little bit of coaching involved to explain financials to doctors. I think one of the most common comments that I've received from doctors is that they're scared of the numbers.
Mhm.
And that's okay to be a dentist and be scared of the numbers. That's not okay to be a business owner and to be scared of the numbers. So it's our mission really is to fill the entrepreneurial void that's in the accounting space for dentists. And like I said at the beginning, they're the same business model. Believe it or not, many CPAs are not great business owners.
Oh, I've
You know,
got a statistic on that. So I'm not going to be able to give you a link and a reference to it, but when I was researching years ago, the American Dental Association says that 95% of dentists can retire and maintain their lifestyle. And the correlation to that is 96%, 95% cannot retire and maintain
Right.
their lifestyle. The corollary to that for CPAs is 94% cannot retire and maintain their lifestyle. So like this huge light bulb went off early in my career. It's like, oh my God, CPAs are only 1% better than the dentists that they collaborate with. No one is focused on the future. And you and I have talked about this a couple of times. There's a very big life-changing, generational wealth changing difference between working with a financial team that is proactive versus reactive. And I want to dive into that just a bit.
Please.
on your
Yeah,
I'm going to take one
real
example.
quick, I'll tell you, before I got into this, I used to beat up CPAs pretty bad. And I would say, they come in and count the bodies after the war is over.
Mm,
And the other thing I oftentimes would accuse them of is knowing the cost of everything and the value of nothing. And I think those are similarities again amongst dentists and accountants, is that it's an analytical occupation by nature.
yeah.
And you tend to be, in the weeds, in the job, in the chair. And most of them, even the CPAs, I'll tell you, we've made one acquisition so far in our first 5 years, and I found that most CPAs, even though they see even the dental CPAs, they see their dental clients selling and transitioning their businesses, and they don't even plan for that for themselves in their own business.
Yeah, I have a lot of compassions for CPA. I almost became a CPA. And then I realized that, so I got a degree in hygiene, and then I went back and started working on a degree in business, and I loved accounting. Don't like math, but I love accounting. It's a different part of your numerical brain. And then I thought, and I would visit some CPAs, and they all, back in the day, because I'm from back in the day, they all had that dark paneled office with these little desks. And I thought, I just can't live like picture Bob Newhart, right? With the Naga hide. And I thought, I can't work in such a dreary environment. So I stayed in dentistry and didn't go into accounting. But one of the things that I think where proactive versus reactive really shows up is in recommendations about benchmarks and spending, like lab costs, labor costs, marketing costs, all of these things. So many, and there are, I know you're not the only great CPA firm out there. There are many great CPAs, but as a trend line, a lot of CPAs will say, my clients tend to spend this. And so because it's common, they make it a benchmark. I call that like reactive. They just, like you said, they counted the bodies and said, this is what most of my clients do. But then they package it as advice. This is what you should do.
You know what's most sad about what you just said is that they're driving all of their clients to be average, like the rest of their
Right.
clients.
Right.
And it's like going back into the pool of mediocrity. And I think that's a huge point. I think that, statistics are put out on what the averages are, in different occupations, what the averages are for expenses in dentistry. And I don't want to be average. I don't want to work with people that want to be average. You got to push to see, if there's a top 1%, that means that they're doing the opposite of the other 99%. And
Yeah, or one or two things different that really leveraged it. And that's what I say. Building an investment grade practice should not be out of the reach of every dentist in America. Like, I'm on a mission for this, and I want to level the playing field for the DSO impact. I think private practice, independent practice is alive and well, will be alive and well 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. But how do you really gain that discernment on who you surround yourself with? You've got to have a great board of advisors. So when it comes to marketing, average typical dentist spends 1% to 2%, but the typical dentist will never be able to retire and maintain their lifestyle. So what is a proactive budget for, I'm just taking marketing as an example.
If the statistic has been put out, I think it was back in 2017, that the DSOs on average were spending 6 to 8% in marketing. And so you've got this wide spectrum of one statistic of, private practices doing 1% to 2%, and then the DSOs doing 6 to 8. I think if you just look at it, I think it's pretty intuitive that most DSOs have a little bit harder time with retention than private practices. Private practice can put a little special touch on things and should have a better job with retention, but they've got to invite more people to the party. If you have that knowledge, and know that the DSOs who typically are larger revenues than a single location private practice, they're reinvesting not only a higher percentage, but more dollars, right, to invite more people to the party. And that is part of the equation. I think in your world, Victoria, of practice management, I think that there's a spectrum of people that give advice on, focusing all on new patients, and people that focus all on stopping the leaks in the buckets. I'm of the opinion, do the thing in the middle, do both.
Do both.
Yeah. Get conversion, but unfortunately, I think private practice, the small business owner who sometimes uses the business as their personal piggy bank, or who, just doesn't, they feel like they're better off taking the money home than they are reinvesting in their business. That's the opposite of what private equity is doing. They could be investing their money somewhere else. They're choosing to invest it into the dental business.
Why is that? Why is private equity investing so much in dentistry right now?
I think a simple way of answering that is that it was a sleepy industry, an occupation of people who owned their own business, but did not pay attention to it, did not do things like invest in it, did not know their metrics. And when you start to learn the metrics of dentistry, it's very consistent and repeatable, redundant. It's recession proof and crisis proof and predictable return. And if you could just get, 10% margin or return in a dental practice on your investment, that's and it's consistent like that, that's way better than the stock market that goes up and down. Dentistry is shining right now in a time where the market goes down. But even when the market's high, I will argue till I lose my breath that the dentistry is a better bet than Wall Street. And if that wasn't so, people with plenty more money than a lot of the doctors out there, they'd be putting their money in the stock market rather than dental practices, but they're not.
And Heartland sold to the teachers' retirement system of Canada, 10, 15 years ago. I thought that type of investor is the most conservative investor there is. When teachers' retirement systems invest in something, it's because of steady, predictable returns. Nothing crazy is going to happen when the market goes up or down. So I think there's a lot of validity to what you're saying, but treating it like the business. So give us some pros and cons of what to look for. I know you do what you call do you call it a tax x-ray? Which I love. And so many of our clients have gone through that. And a lot of times you say, man, your CPA has been doing a great job, and here's some things that you might think about. Or your CPA has not set up your company very well, so at time of sale, it's going to cost you a lot more in taxes. Here's some things that you should have been doing or could be doing. You're finding all kinds of things. So if you're vetting a CPA, what do you look for?
What's the old saying that, diagnosis without an x-ray is malpractice, or without an exam is malpractice. It's the same thing in a lot of businesses, but certainly in tax and accounting. I mean, I think we get a lot of questions. People ask, I think, similar questions they ask of a dental office, what are your fees on certain things? And without seeing, you have to see the full scope of the work. You have to see the full picture, and you got to get an updated, we call it a financial x-ray. And that's the same thing that you do every time you go through getting a loan, or again, selling your practice. Anytime there's that big transaction of money, it's always looking at the last 3 years. So we want to see 3 years of tax returns, a full year profit and loss statement, and balance sheet. And the balance sheet is important. It's one thing I think gets left out. Most business owners don't look at, understand, or use their balance sheet. But to see that full picture, to see not only just the business, your personal, but any other side gigs you might have, those 11 rental properties or whatever you might be doing, in order to be able to fully give any kind of treatment plan, and that's what we do on every consult we do. Just like a doctor may offer a free exam and x-ray, we do the same thing. If you will provide all of your documents, we'll tell you what we see. We'll see if there's any low-hanging fruit, any free money you can get. And then we'll tell you what we would do differently and how we would improve the situation. If you don't do that, and all you do is have a discussion around, well, every year how many returns do you have? We'll file those. You're getting transactional advice. And I hope that I know that I seek out transformational relationships, and I hope for everyone that's in business that they seek out transformational relationships. But
what does that mean?
Well, I mean, how is aligning yourself with the CPA going to positively impact your life? Is it just going to report data and file paperwork for you? Or is it going to be something that gives you strategies that could help you, save so much money in taxes one year that you pay off your home mortgage, as an example? Is it going to be someone who is not just a minimalist telling you where you can cut expenses? That's really the easy part. But a lot of times accounting doesn't have a focus on revenue. That certainly doesn't create revenue for you. But is that relationship going to help you interpret and explain your financial picture and give you advice to push you outside of your box, to a new level? There's an important concept. I think that when people are meeting with accountants and interviewing them, a lot of times I get this feeling they're looking for this like magical LLC strategy that they can open up. And can I move my money over there and then move it back and move it around? And is that going to save me on taxes? And there's plenty of schemes out there that are used to sell products. But, Victoria, if I was to give like some hard advice to someone in terms of when they're talking about just minimizing taxes, I think it's, the more income you make, the more taxes you pay. Okay. The more assets that you buy, the less taxes you pay. And the government our IRS code incentivizes you the most when you make big moves to do things that our government views as improving our economy. And that traditionally has to do with businesses, like buying businesses or commercial real estate that house businesses. And the vast majority, the 99% of people don't own those things. And so they can't participate in those things. And sometimes it takes growing someone and pushing them outside of their box to get them to realize that, hey, if you really have this desire to work hard and to keep more of what you make, pay less in taxes, you're going to have to do more. You can't just sit still. The government wants you to buy assets, and they're going to penalize you for earning income.
Right.
And this took a while for me for this to register as well. And I basically am now in this game myself, where as I am trying to constantly earn more income, I'm then taking that income as much as I can and converting it into assets. They don't have to be hard assets, but I like hard assets that provide passive income, and it all have to be rental income, but I like passive rental income from dental office buildings.
Right.
You know, you know, I've worked in the dental practice. I don't necessarily want to go into ownership of the dental practice with all the people involved, but I sure would like to own majority of the offices that Heartland pays rent to.
Wouldn't that be great? What a steady client. What a
Yeah,
steady tenant.
and it's like what I'm learning is, first you should do this in your own business. I own the building for our CPA practice, but then I went out and bought a dental office building. And as you start making income, you keep buying. My plan is I'm going to keep buying these dental office buildings, and every time I buy one, it comes with depreciation,
Right.
on that real estate, and that offsets the taxable income from the other building, and some from my business. So it's a constant game of never stop growing, and I think that's another thing, Victoria, that it's something to overcome for people that are early in their careers, sometimes even later in their careers. They like, what if I don't want to grow? What if I just want to sit still?
You're
That's a
never
personal
sitting
choice.
still.
There's that saying, you're either growing or you're dying, right? So, I mean, that's a choice. You can sit still, but you're not going to win at the game.
Well, you've just highlighted so many principles that I believe in and that we're teaching doctors as they build investment grade practices. It's about building assets. So the cash flow and the patient base of your practice, that's asset number one. The building's asset number two. Build a comprehensive patient finance portfolio. That's asset number three. Bring in-house a lab or do your own printing. You're starting to shift line items on your P&L into, I don't know who told this to me. It was an early mentor. He said, the more times you can flip a coin before it leaves your hands, the richer you'll become. And I thought, oh, what does flipping a coin have to do with anything? So it's like you flip it and you catch it, and now you put it back to use. So if I take my revenue from the practice, instead of paying rent, I buy the asset. Now I kept that money, I flipped the coin and I kept the coin. And then I decide I've got open time in my schedule. So I trade that time for patient loan, which I collect interest on. Now I flip that coin again. I took my time and I kept that coin in my hand, and it grows exponentially once you start doing that. So many great things. You brought up also a great point when you said you've got to know how to be organized. So accounting doesn't matter till it matters. And the thing that matters most when it matters is how organized are you? I know one practice I got approved start to finish. Like I met the banker, was funded 9 days later. Now that doesn't happen very often, but I said, I don't like the funding and the offers that I've gotten. I got right up to closure on one practice that I was buying. And in the fine print, they wanted certified financials every year, audited financials every year, not just GAAP financials, but the bank itself needed to audit my financials, and they were going to charge me $5,000 per location. I have 5 locations. So for an extra $25,000 a year, I could get this incredibly low interest rate on my practice loan. And I was like, and I did the math, and it was like ridiculous how much more interest they were charging me through this audit fee. And I don't like things like that. So I immediately went shopping for it. Oh, that might have been the one that I came in a day late. and yeah, PNC Bank was great with me. And I said, what do you need? They told me, and I just opened up my Dropbox, shared them with the box. Everything they needed was there. So within 30 minutes, I had everything they needed. And they looked at that. They looked at me. They interviewed others, and they said, yeah, you're good to go. And filled out the paperwork, and we went. That wasn't the case on the first loan I did, where I'm like, you need what? And so it can take years to get in that shape.
Well, and being organized is like an indicator, for a bank of how organized are you going to be to make your payment on time.
Yeah.
And having that where you like, you're ready to have basically financial nudity to anyone at any time because you have nothing to fear, and that you're you're ready to present your documents in a clean, organized format, that you have a good cash metric on your balance sheet, and that you have cash flow profit at the bottom of your P&L. Lenders are first and foremost cash flow lenders, but they want to see, are you a good financial steward?
Yeah.
If you've been in practice for a decade or more, they hope to see you have some savings, that you're a saver. If not, that's a risk factor for them. But being organized is the first key step.
I love it. Chris, you're going to be with us in September at our first ever IGP Summit. And our doctors are so excited. This is our member only, invitation only event. And we're going to have you there because there's so much happening in dentistry right now that has changed. So if you're a current PDA client, I want you just to take all of that in. Christopher's going to be there to answer a lot of these more detailed questions about accounting and how it impacts finance. And you'll be there along with our friends at Dentist Advisors and professional transition services. I mean, it's just going to be such a deep, rich combination. And I feel so lucky and blessed that you're going to be there, because getting all of you on a phone call is nearly impossible. Getting you in a room for 2.5 days together, this is epic. This is unheard of. Outside a conference where you might be speaking for an hour, but then not really engaged, right? All of these topics coming together as one is going to be epic.
The full board of advisors, there.
The full board of advisors, plus our coaches, plus some IGP doctors that have already walked this path. It's like the real meal deal. All right, before we wrap this up, we got to go back to the University of Georgia just to reveal a little personal information and how times change. I tell people I came into dentistry when literally we had stone tablets and we were chiseling, we were chiseling away. So I graduated dental hygiene school in 1982, went from Jacksonville, Florida to Athens, Georgia, and went on campus with the University of Georgia. And if you've seen the campus, we have the arches. They're iconic.
It's our state symbol.
It's our state symbol, right?
That's right.
Well, it'd be hard to have UGA as a state symbol. So the folklore when I was there 20 years before you was, if you walk through the arches as a freshman, you will remain a virgin the rest of your life. So we always walked around the arches. Now, it changed when you went to school there.
Hey, I guess they watered it down. It became more PC. It was just, if you walked through the arches before graduation day, then you would not graduate. So you always walked around. But I don't know if you remember Louis Grizzard.
I love Louis Grizzard.
He was one of the best, and he had a saying that he said, probably was said back in the 60s, and then it's still true today, I would think. He said, they say that you can drive by the University of Georgia, roll your window down in your car, and they'll throw a diploma in. And that's not true. You have to stop.
It's so good to be with another Georgia native who kind of gets this. Louis Grizzard. Do you know, interestingly, Louis Grizzard died of an abscess tooth. Did you know
Really?
that?
No, I did not know that.
He had a wisdom tooth that was unextracted, became infected, and he had a heart valve replacement with a pig's valve, and I think the infection, I'll have to check the data on that, but I think the oral infection is what caused an infection in his valve, and that's what took him out.
I knew it was definitely heart related, but the fact that I brought that up, we're having this conversation is dental related. That's pretty interesting.
All right, to wrap it up, if you don't know Louis Grizzard, get the book, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. And if you're looking for an amazing, proactive, future-facing CPA firm, please check out ProFi 2020. Chris, you want to give us some contact information?
Sure. You can check us out online at profi2020.com. That's PROFI2020.com. And we're on all forms of social media at ProFi 2020.
All right. You're the best. I can't wait to see you in person in September.
Same here, Victoria.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Investment Grade Practices Podcast. If you find value in this episode, help us spread the word by passing it along to a dental friend, subscribe, and give us a like on iTunes or Spotify. Learn more about building your investment grade practice at productivedentist.com today.